Summary of the book, The Art of Indifference. In an unusual style, the book offers unusual advice for self-development and living a better life. It asks us to focus on the negatives, not the positives. It tells us that happiness lies in problems, and it talks to us about suffering, failure, and responsibility. Pros and cons. Maybe you don't have to focus on the positive expectations and hopes as much as you focus on the negatives and the obstacles that you face, because your focus on positive hopes will lead you to focus on what you lack. For example, your focus on the luxurious house or luxury car that you dream of will make you feel that you are poor even if you are well off, and your focus on being loved by all people will make you feel lonely and afraid even if you have a loving family. And sometimes things improve when we do not pay too much attention to them, because getting rid of that extra attention will make you deal with challenges with greater ability to confront and act, and with less anxiety, and will make your failure less frustrating. This is what is meant by indifference, but beware of indifference turning into indifference. With anything at all, be smart to only care about what is worth it, and so that difficulties and obstacles do not concern you. Care about what is more important than them, such as your values that you desire, preserving it, or as a lofty goal to seek. In your quest, pay attention to the common self-esteem trick that holds that all people are special people, and which is spreading with social technology, including a flood of exceptional information between very bad and very good, with no average or normal, which creates an excessive and false sense of entitlement among those who believe it, leading him to magnify his advantages and neglect his faults and weaknesses. So he thinks that he does not face any problems, and sometimes they lead to the opposite feeling, which is also a false sense of entitlement, in which he magnifies his problems and thinks that no one faces problems this difficult except him. True self-esteem lies in balance and in knowing one's negatives so that he always works to develop them himself. Happiness and pain. Happiness is not a mathematical equation that we solve, nor is it something that comes to us and then disappears when we achieve a goal. Rather, it is an act of solving problems, and the problems in our lives do not completely disappear or stop. Rather, we move from one problem to another continuously. So happiness is more like a continuous journey that is the other, but many people spoil the simplicity of the matter, and I say its simplicity, not its ease, as it is difficult many times. And this happens in two ways. The first is denial. That is, they deny the existence of problems in the first place, and in doing so, they deny reality. So they give themselves temporary relief, but it leads them to depression and insecurity in the end. The second way is that they think with the mentality of a victim. So they see that their problems have no solution to them, and they place the blame on others and on external circumstances. This may also give them temporary relief, but it quickly turns into despair, helplessness, and permanent anger. As for pain, it is the motivation for movement and change in humans, and it is a useful thing that we do not have to neglect or deny. We are accustomed to accepting it physically as a warning that keeps us away from what will harm us, as happens when a pin pricks your finger and you quickly remove it, or when a child is harmed by touching fire and does not approach it after that. So why not accept it psychologically as well? Do we realize that it is a warning that keeps us away from harmful relationships and from repeating mistakes? Pain is necessary in life, so each of us must choose God. Everyone dreams of the colors of happiness and chooses the images of happiness that they want, but perhaps the most important thing is to choose the images of suffering and pain that we are able to bear and be patient with in order to realize what we want. So choose what you want to struggle for. Do not choose what you want in the outcome, but rather what you want on the path to it, because the real joy lies in the journey. How does our suffering have meaning? The value of suffering is that it has a real meaning, that there is a point in it, that we enjoy it, and it is an integral part of life. So your question should not be, how do I get rid of suffering? But rather, why did I suffer? The answer will give you patience. To answer the question, why did I suffer? We must understand ourselves, realize ourselves, and be like the author is self-realization with an onion, which are layers and tiers. The first layer in this onion is the initial understanding of simple feelings. That is, answers to questions such as, what makes me happy, and what makes me sad, and what makes me angry? And it is unfortunate that there are people who do not know the answers to simple questions like this. The second layer of understanding, the reasons behind our feelings, we know by answering questions such as, why does this make me sad? And why does this make me happy to see? As for the third layer, the realization of which usually causes the greatest amount of tears, are our personal values, that is, the standards and criteria by which we judge ourselves and others, and they are what determine the nature of our problems, which in turn determine the quality of our lives, and in our exploration of these layers we get away with some easy ways out, but constant, honest self-questioning is what we really need. The book classifies good and bad values as follows. Good values are realistic, socially constructive values that can be controlled, such as honesty, creativity, love of knowledge, and defending oneself and others. Bad values are imaginary, socially destructive values that cannot be controlled, such as striving to please everyone, fame, and measuring success, compared to others, some of which are truly worthless, such as material success and sheer pleasure. The responsibility, the author says, it is often the only difference between a problem that afflicts you and a problem that fills your being. All energy is your feeling that you are the one who chose the problem and that you are responsible for it. Imposed problems make a person feel that nothing is in his control, but each of us must bear responsibility for what happens in his life, regardless of who is guilty and blamed for what happened, and that responsibility is represented in the way. Our interpretation and understanding of events and the way we respond to them, and we must differentiate between responsibility and blame. We may not be to blame for some of the things that happen to us, and some of them happen because of us. But in both cases, we must bear responsibility and be responsible for our convictions, emotions, and actions. Blaming is a matter related to the past, either responsibility in the present. Let us give examples. When you choose to buy a certain thing at a high price and you do not actually need it, and then you find yourself in a critical financial situation before the end of the month, you are to blame, and you are responsible for solving the problem by borrowing or finding temporary work or otherwise. But when some people are born with hereditary diseases, then there is no "it is their fault," but they are responsible for dealing with the matter in the best way what they can. We must move on and continue with our lives despite the problems. How do you take responsibility for everything in your life as required? This is your choice, and the matter is simple. All you have to do is make a decision to stop living in the role of the victim and feeling over-entitled. It is a simple matter, but it is never easy. It is painful for a person to give up what he is accustomed to, whether in this matter or anything else, and there will be pain and failure. At first, there will be withdrawal symptoms, but this is our way to be better. What if we make a mistake or fail? Our development and growth in this life is based on our mistakes. As we move from one mistake to a simpler mistake, but we do not reach perfection. so we do not have to worry about it, and we must accept our mistakes and not be afraid of them, because we are keen to be right, always and forever. It will deprive us of living our lives, because our brains are not perfect. We forget and make mistakes in some of what we hear and see, and we bias ourselves with our opinions regardless of what they are, and we fill in the gaps in stories when we mention an old memory or something we heard from someone. Accordingly, we must reduce our self-confidence, and we doubt and wonder to test the validity of our perceptions, and we also have to choose for ourselves a simple identity such as I am a student, I am a father, or I am creative in such and such a field, instead of identities such as I am a shining star, or I am an unparalleled genius. Because we will avoid everything that threatens our identity, we fear failure, and we fear success as well, and when we are liberated from our perceptions of ourselves, we become more able to experiment and fail, and thus grow and develop. Failure is an integral part of success. Indeed, our success in something is directly proportional to the number of times we fail at it. How many times does a young child stumble while learning to walk? Have you ever heard him say, "Walking does not seem to suit me, I will just keep crawling"? The concept of failure. Success in general is linked to our own values and standards, and short-term strategic goals cannot be built our lives on, as many of them lose their value when they are achieved. As for values, they are the continuous march, and the fear of failure is possible, but it does not bear fruit and causes procrastination, and to overcome it, the book presents to us the principle of do something and start, and the work will constitute motivation, and motivation for further work. And let your measure be that any result is progress. And do not forget that slow progress is still progress. Must be rejected. Rejection is a must in the various aspects of our lives. Without rejection, we would be without an identity, because our identities are formed based on what we accept and what we reject. Avoiding rejection is the result of exaggerating the positive thinking that is so much promoted these days. This avoidance may give us temporary relief, but it makes us lose meaning and direction. In the long run, when you truly love a person or a job and appreciate it, you will have to reject everything else to devote your time to it, so the relationship will be fruitful and the work will flourish. Likewise, when you hate a job or a person, you need the courage to reject in order to... Don't stay stuck in what hurts you. Rejection is present in healthy relationships because they are based on accepting responsibility on both sides of the relationship. The willingness of each to express rejection and acceptance from the other. This draws healthy boundaries between responsibilities and problems, as each is not responsible for the other's problems. Each supports the other in his individual growth and is not obligated to help him unless he wants to. He chose it according to what the writer says, because relationships are also based on trust, and trust requires frankness, and frankness involves rejection and acceptance. Rejection is present in our various experiences, when we choose to live one profound experience and refuse to run after continuous breadth without depth, and when we realize that we gain freedom by committing to the best experiences, people, and things, we are liberated from what is useless and does not matter. We combine our focus and energy on what is truly worthy and open the door to better opportunities, and we realize that more is not always better, contrary to what contemporary consumer culture dictates to us. And in conclusion, great success and attracting great attention are not synonymous, even if people in our time treat them as such. You may attract great attention with the nonsense you do and you may be a great success that does not attract that attention by raising your children well. And if the book talks about death as an ending, it reminds us to focus on what we can leave behind. From an immortal impact, we know that death is not an end, but rather a stage that leads to another eternal life, and that the immortal impact in this world does not matter as much as what is written in the pages of our deeds.